She wasn't found in Mexico, she wasn't painted on a tilma, and she didn't speak Nahuatl. Before all that, 2 centuries earlier, the Virgin of Guadalupe was already working miracles in the mountains of Spain, buried, forgotten, and then rediscovered by a poor shepherd and a resurrected cow. This is the story almost no one talks about, a tale of light hidden in the earth, of silence that heals, and of a devotion that shaped both sides of the Atlantic. You're about to uncover one of Catholicism's oldest and most mysterious Marian apparitions, the Virgin you never knew. Chapter 1. The Meeting of Pastor Gil Cordero. In the rugged hills of 14th century Spain, far from the eyes of kings and the reach of cities, a poor shepherd named Gil Cordero wandered the wilderness searching for a missing cow. His path led him into the dense, silent forest near the Guadalupe River, a place whispered about by locals but barely marked on maps. What he found there would ignite one of the oldest Marian devotions in Europe. Centuries before the Virgin appeared in Mexico, when Gil finally spotted the cow, it was lifeless on the ground. No wounds, no struggle, just still. Resigned to his loss, he drew his knife and made the sign of the cross over the animal, as was custom before skinning it. But then, something impossible happened. The cow stood up, alive, healthy, as if death itself had reversed. The startled shepherd looked around, and that's when he saw her. A radiant lady appeared in the clearing, unlike any woman he'd ever seen. She wasn't standing on the ground, she was above it, surrounded by a warm glow, silent and powerful. She told Gil to return to this place with help and to dig. There, she said, he would find something sacred, hidden long ago. And just as suddenly she vanished, leaving behind the scent of roses and a silence that felt divine. Gil obeyed. He brought back priests and villagers, and together they dug where she had pointed. Beneath the earth, wrapped in stone and forgotten by time, they uncovered a sealed box. Inside was a wooden statue of the Virgin Mary holding the child Jesus. Darkened by age, untouched by decay. A statue buried, hidden, perhaps during the Muslim occupation centuries earlier. And now found not by clergy or nobles, but by a simple shepherd in a wild corner of Spain. News spread fast, not just of the statue, but of the miracles. People who touched the image claimed healing. Children stopped coughing. Eyes once blind could see. A sanctuary was quickly built on that very spot, and pilgrims began arriving from all directions. The devotion to the Virgin of Guadalupe, this first Guadalupe, had begun. And yet, most people today have never even heard of her. That's why we're here, to uncover the forgotten miracles and reveal the Virgin you never knew. If you're moved by hidden Catholic history and stories that shape the soul, consider subscribing to our channel. Your curiosity helps us bring the faith's most powerful stories back to light. But what they uncovered beneath the soil wasn't just a statue. It was a mystery older than any of them could imagine. One that would begin healing the sick, raising the dead, and rewriting the future of a nation. Chapter 2. The Black Madonna and the Miracles. The statue they unearthed was unlike anything the villagers had seen. Carved from dark wood, just under 2 feet tall, it portrayed the Virgin Mary seated with the child Jesus on her lap. Regal, yet maternal. Her face was tender, her hands serene. And though centuries had passed since it was buried, the image remained perfectly intact. No rot, no weathering, only mystery. She quickly became known as the Morenita, the dark-skinned Lady of the Mountains. But it wasn't just her beauty that drew the crowds. It was the power they felt in her presence. Locals spoke of unexplainable healings. A blind woman from Cáceres regained her sight after praying before the image. A child with fever was carried to the shrine and left with color in his cheeks and breath in his lungs. Even skeptics began to whisper that this virgin was not like the others. that her silence spoke louder than sermons. One of the earliest and most heart-wrenching miracles came from Gil Cordero himself. Days after the discovery, his young son suddenly died at home. Struck by grief but not despair, Gil knelt before the statue and begged for mercy. Hours later, during the child's wake, the boy sat up, alive, confused, saying he had dreamed of a beautiful lady who told him not to be afraid. Word of the resurrection spread across the kingdom like wildfire. This miracle cemented the devotion to Guadalupe. What began as a rural shrine became a spiritual magnet. Pilgrims traveled from every direction, many on foot, to see the Black Madonna hidden in the mountains. Offerings lined the altar, candles, coins, crutches no longer needed. The sick, the broken, the desperate. They all came with hope, and many left with stories of impossible grace. Over time, the church acknowledged the site as holy ground. A chapel became a sanctuary became a monastery, and surrounding it all was the growing legend of the lady found beneath the earth, who healed without words and called the forgotten to her side. She became the Virgin of the Voiceless, the silent miracle worker of Extremadura. Her legacy lives on, not just in stone and relics, but in the lives she touched. If you're drawn to stories like hers, miraculous, hidden, and deeply human, don't miss our companion ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. It's filled with powerful accounts of saints and Marian devotion, and it's available now in our store, linked below. And while the miracles multiplied, so did the questions. Who carved this statue and why was she hidden so long ago? The answer, it turns out, would shape the faith of 2 continents. Chapter 3: Before Mexico. The name that traveled. Long before Juan Diego walked the hill of Tepeyac, the name Guadalupe had already echoed through the Catholic world. But it didn't start in the Americas. It began here, in the forests of Extremadura, where a hidden statue and a humble shepherd sparked a devotion that would travel farther than anyone imagined. And while many today associate the name with Mexico, the roots run deep in Spanish soil. The region of Extremadura was home to some of Spain's most legendary explorers. Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro were both born within reach of the Guadalupe shrine. They grew up hearing stories of the Virgin who healed the sick and revived the dead. So when they crossed the Atlantic in search of new worlds, they carried more than swords and sails. They brought faith and the name of a Madonna already proven miraculous. It was Cristobal Colombo himself who first took the name overseas. After returning from his first voyage in 1492, he made a pilgrimage to the monastery of Guadalupe to give thanks. Not long after, during his second voyage, he named an island in the Caribbean Santa Maria de Guadalupe in her honor. The name would soon be repeated again and again, wherever Spanish ships landed and churches were built. This is why, when the Virgin appeared in Mexico in 1531, many believed she had come under a familiar name. Whether it was divine intention or missionary influence, the title Guadalupe echoed back across the ocean, linking 2 continents, 2 apparitions, and 2 faces of Mary. One, a carved statue buried in Spain. The other, an image miraculously imprinted on cactus fiber cloth in the hills of Mexico. Yet, despite the shared name, they are not the same. The Virgin of Extremadura is seated, dark-skinned, carved from wood, dressed in fine embroidered mantles. She speaks through silence and centuries. The Mexican Virgin, radiant and indigenous, stands surrounded by stars and light, her message clear and urgent. But in both, the essence is unmistakable. A mother who appears where she is least expected, and to those least likely to be heard. Guadalupe didn't just travel across the sea, she transcended culture, time, and empire. And the more you trace her name, the more you realize this isn't just a story about geography. It's about how one devotion, born in obscurity, became a bridge between worlds, carried not by power but by faith. Yet the journey of Guadalupe was far from over, because what began in the hills of Spain would soon enter palaces, sail across oceans, and leave its mark on kings, conquerors, and eternity. Chapter 4: Legacy and Devotion. Through the ages, from the quiet mountain where she was found, the Virgin of Guadalupe became more than a relic. She became a living symbol. For the people of Spain, she was a sign that faith had survived centuries of war and silence. And for centuries to come, her sanctuary would be not just a place of pilgrimage, but a stage where kings, explorers, and commoners stood shoulder to shoulder in awe. In 1340, King Alfonso XI prayed before her image before a critical battle against invading forces. When he returned victorious, he credited the Virgin and poured royal support into expanding her shrine. Over time, a modest chapel became a grand monastery. Monks of the Order of St. Jerome took guardianship of the sanctuary, transforming it into a center of religious life, art, and knowledge. The Royal Monastery of Guadalupe became one of the spiritual hearts of Spain. Its walls hosted royal decrees, theological debates, and even indigenous peoples brought from the Americas to be baptized and educated. It housed priceless art, rare manuscripts, and a medical school centuries ahead of its time. But at its core always was the small, dark statue and the silent miracles she inspired. Even Columbus knelt there. Before launching his voyages, he came to Guadalupe. And when he returned from the New World, he came again to give thanks. In the age of discovery, her name became a banner of mission and mercy. Ships carried it to every port touched by the Spanish flag. She was no longer just the virgin of a mountain village. She had become the mother of an empire. Yet despite her royal connections, Guadalupe always remained close to the poor. Farmers, soldiers, women in childbirth all came to her feet, and her shrine welcomed them with the same tenderness as it had welcomed Gil Cordero. She was the Queen of Castile, yes, but she was also the Lady of the Brokenhearted, a protector in the shadows, a light in the wilderness. And today, centuries later, pilgrims still climb the steps of the monastery. They still touch the stone where she was found. They still kneel before her, some in silence, others in tears. Because what began with a shepherd and a missing cow became something more. A devotion that outlasted kingdoms, crossed oceans, and continues to heal hearts across the world. But the most surprising part of this story isn't what she did for empires, but what she still does today in silence. From a hidden mountain where miracles never stopped. Centuries have passed, empires have crumbled. Even the name Guadalupe has been claimed, reinterpreted, and reborn across oceans. But in a quiet monastery in Extremadura, the original Virgin remains. She doesn't speak, she doesn't move. But people still come, pilgrims, kings, doubters, and the brokenhearted, because somehow her silence still speaks. And maybe that's what makes her so powerful. In a noisy world, she whispers. In a forgotten corner of Spain, she reminds us, the miraculous often begins in secret. If this story moved you, help us keep bringing forgotten Catholic history to light. Like, share, and subscribe. May the Virgin of Guadalupe, hidden in silence yet radiant in grace, intercede for you and your family today and always. May her quiet strength guide your faith, and may her maternal love bring peace to your heart. Thank you for joining us on this journey of faith and discovery. Until next time, stay blessed, stay curious, and keep walking with the saints.